guys, Gun UK here. Just like to make a quick video if I may regarding the application for the grant or renewal of a firearm and or shotgun certificate in the UK. Hopefully this video will be a good resource for those people in the UK who would like to take up the shooting sports and who are looking for an introduction in how to do so. But also to our American cousins, this should give you an indication of some of the hoops you have to jump through when your rights turn to privileges. So moving on, in general in the UK when we talk about applying for a firearm or a shotgun certificate, we are really only talking about long guns and double barrel, single barrel, pump and semi-automatic shotguns. The Home Office make it very clear how they specify and how they determine how a firearm falls under what category of firearm that you can certify for. There are four main areas that the general public will have an understanding of. They won't necessarily be allowed to apply for those four areas. The four areas being a Section 1, which is a firearm certificate, a Section 2, which is a shotgun certificate, a Section 5, which only dealers really will apply for, which is for prohibited weapons, semi-automatics, short barrel pistols, etc. And then you have Section 7.1 and Section 7.3, which deal with historical firearms. These Section 7 pistols, classified as heritage pistols, were given this status primarily to stop them being destroyed after the Dunblane tragedy. Obviously, regardless of your personal opinion with regards to firearms, there are some historically significant pieces of equipment, specimens that should be preserved, and that's what Section 7 of the Firearms Act tries to do. Whether it does it fairly enough is another question, but an attempt was made to ensure that historically significant firearms were not destroyed after the Dunblane incident. What we're going to concentrate on here today though is Section 1 and Section 2 of the Firearms Act, namely a firearm certificate or a shotgun certificate. Now, the Firearms Act of 1968 very clearly defines what is a firearm and what is a shotgun. So if we bring up the documentation on that, you can see that as described in the Firearms Act, a firearm applies to all firearms except a shotgun, an air weapon unless declared specially dangerous, and that's done on how many foot-pounds of energy the air weapon can generate, or prohibited weapons such as centerfire self-loading rifles, handguns, machine guns. When we talk about prohibited weapons, that's what we were mentioning with Section 5 previously. In the UK, we are allowed bolt-action rifles and straight-pull rifles. So if you can imagine a Remington 700, for example, classic bolt-action rifle, yes, we can have those. If you can imagine an AR-15 without the working gas components, and your charging handle being the only way to rack around, that is what we have. We are allowed any firearm that you can imagine from a rifle perspective, provided it is not self-loading. So AK-103 with the gas mechanism taken out, not a problem. So that is what's classified as a firearm in the UK. From a shotgun perspective, a shotgun is defined as a smoothbore gun, having a barrel not less than 24 inches, having no magazine or a non-detachable magazine, incapable of holding more than 2 cartridges. When you talk about a shotgun, for example, a Mossberg 500 in a 5.1 configuration, 5+1 rather configuration, that would have to be taken off your shotgun certificate and placed onto a firearm certificate. They are very keen that the capacity of a shotgun is no more than 2 cartridges in the magazine. So for example, in an over and under shotgun, you've got no problems because you can only fire 2 cartridges. In a pump action shotgun, you can, by law, have a cartridge in the chamber and 2 cartridges in the magazine. So effectively it does become a 3-shot gun, but it's 2 cartridges in the magazine. A note of caution is if you do have, for example, a Mossberg 500 and you are OCD like I am and you like to strip the firearm down to its last screw, if you take the magazine tube off the receiver, you are breaking the law. You are turning that Section 2 shotgun into a Section 1 firearm. In the UK, the tubular magazine is either permanently affixed via a high strength Loctite, or they actually can ask you to pin the magazine to the receiver so it becomes completely non-detachable. That has caught people out in the past, me being one of them. So be very, very careful that you do not remove the magazine on a Section 2 shotgun, because by virtue of doing so, even if you aren't increasing the magazine's capacity, you are changing the parameters of that firearm, of that shotgun, and turning it into a firearm. So based upon these definitions of firearm and shotgun is how you're going to fill out the grant or renewal for your firearm or shotgun certificate. The document I was just referring to that gave you the definitions of a firearm and a shotgun comes as part of the pack that Form 201, the application form, is with. So Form 201 is your application form for a firearm and a shotgun certificate. Form 201A are the notes which will help you fill out the firearm or shotgun certificate grant or renewal. It's relatively straightforward. It does get into some personal details that for a UK citizen you've just got to live with for a US citizen. It is akin to, I suppose, your background check, but probably a little more in depth, because whereas the background check in the States, I believe, just wants to know who you are, the application form in the UK wants to know who you are, where you work, what firearms you currently have in your possession, what firearms you would like to acquire in the future, the amount of ammunition you currently have in your possession, and the amount of ammunition you would like to acquire in the future. We aren't just licensed on our firearms and our shotguns, we are licensed on the amount of ammunition we can carry, with the exception of birdshot for our shotguns. We are very, very heavily regulated in the UK, as I'm sure you've heard. So moving on to the actual application form itself, Form 201, which replaced both Forms 101 as the previous firearm certificate form and Form 103 as the previous shotgun certificate form, has amalgamated those two forms into a single document that you can most likely download from your local constabulary's website. In my case, Greater Manchester Police are very, very good with regards to how they disseminate information, application forms, things like referees, who's a legitimate referee who can sign your photographs to say that the picture of you is true likeness, etc. I have nothing but positive words to say about Greater Manchester Police with regards to their firearms team. They've been very helpful to me in the past, and I'm sure they'll continue to be helpful in the future. When applying for your firearms certificate, as I say, you do need 4 passport size photographs, one of which will be signed by you, one of which will be signed by a referee certifying that the photograph is a true likeness, and along with the application form and the licence fee itself, that gets sent away to the police, who will then do their background checks, make sure you're a person of good standing, make sure that you have no criminal record, make sure that shotgun or a firearm. So with regards to the application form itself, you need to choose whether you're applying for a grant or a renewal of your firearm or shotgun certificate. Both a firearm and a shotgun can be granted on the same form and renewed on the same form. You don't have to have an individual firearm certificate grant or renewal as well as an individual shotgun certificate grant or renewal, which helps if you've got, for example, a coterminous license, which means that your firearm certificate and shotgun certificate expires at the same time. So you can renew both licenses on a single form, which is a very easy way of doing it. It also saves you a few quid too, so that's a benefit to the shooter. It also cuts down on the bureaucracy that your local constabulary will have to undertake to make sure that you get what you are entitled to. Part A of the document is regarding your personal details, your title, forename, surname, date of birth, place of birth, etc. This is just basic information that they will already have on you. They are effectively making sure that their information is current, it's up to date, and that the information you're giving them tallies with the information that they already have on you. So by filling in part A, you're just saying, hi guys, this is me, I'd like your consideration to be allowed to either own a shotgun or a firearm. Home address is important in this case because 99.9 times out of 100, that's the address where your firearms, your shotguns are going to be stored. So it's entirely reasonable for them to want to know your home address. Also, they need to know your home address because what they will do on potential grant of the certificate, they will come and see you at home, they will come and ensure the surroundings are safe, that you have a good alarm system at your home, that the safes that you're going to keep your firearms in are adequate from a security perspective, that they can't just be pulled off the wall and somebody's running down the street with them. So they tend to take the security of those who own firearms very seriously, and with good reason. Obviously you'll need to offer contact details, telephone number, either at home or at work, mobile phone number, email address. These are all legitimate ways that your local constabulary can contact you. You're required also to fill out your work address, the work postcode, a telephone number at work and an email address at work. So should they be unable to contact you at home, then they can also contact you at work. Previous home addresses for the past 5 years, you have 1, 2, 3 fields to fill in if you can. For previous addresses, quite who's moved 3 times in 5 years, I wouldn't know, but it's important for them to be able to trace your movement going back in time. They will be able to ascertain whether, as you've moved, whether you've been involved in incidents and that have either been reported or not, and worked out from there whether you are again a person of good standing. It is literally all about the applicant. The police force treat the applicant quite the opposite of the way you would want to be treated in a court of law. They have to assume the worst when they don't know who you are. You are given every opportunity to tell the truth and every opportunity to trip yourself up during the application process. Should you have nothing to fear, you've got nothing to hide. Having said that, I can also understand that the view of being guilty until proven innocent doesn't necessarily fit well for most people. Section 9 will cover if you have ever used any other names than that given in the questions 3 and 4. This is particularly useful if you've been married and you are a woman. Obviously when you get married, the majority of women will take their partner's surname. information regarding your personal health and medical declaration. You have to disclose physical and mental health conditions that will affect your ability to safely possess a firearm. Epilepsy, stroke, stress-related illnesses, depression, alcoholism, heart disease, cancer, etc. These are all areas from a medical perspective where you can be under an altered state of mind. People with altered brain states often do things that aren't necessarily the best for either themselves or their loved ones. So it is important that they check your health records from a perspective of UK legislation, whether or not you agree personally that, for example, if you're suffering from cancer, you may not. Whether you have cancer and you have a firearm, is it relevant for 99% of the people? I would suggest not, but sadly the police have to deal with that 1% of the occasions where people's altered brain states will cause rather considerable damage to the community at large. So moving down, have you ever been treated for any depression? Depression is a very, very important question to be raised by the police. Antidepressants often take forms of medication that very seriously alter your brain state. As we've seen with untold numbers of shootings all around the world, really, an altered brain state due to medication can cause a hell of a lot of trauma to very, very innocent civilians. They need to know details of your GP. They will consult your GP just to make sure that the information you've given them is correct. They will ask your GP, do you have any reason to be concerned with this individual owning a shotgun or a firearm? If your GP comes back and says, no, as far as I'm concerned, they're good standing citizens with good mental and physical health, you should have no problem. Again, telephone number of the GP, email address of the GP, just ways that the police can get into contact. If you make it easier for the police to get in contact with the people they need to get in contact with, the faster your application will be processed. The more information you leave out, or the more you try to say, I don't feel you should have this information, the harder it is for you to get your firearms or shotgun certificate. That is the bottom line of it. Whether it's right or wrong, the police are seen to have a duty of care to the rest of society, especially with regards to those owning a firearm. Section 14 covers previous offences. Now this is a bit of an oddball one. This includes every offence that you've ever been convicted of, ever. The only thing it doesn't include is parking tickets, but if you've got a lead foot like I have, you happen to like speed, yes, you need to put all of your speeding convictions down. Interesting note on this, whilst speeding convictions only stay on your licence for a period of 5 years, if, for example, like you forget because you've had far too many speeding convictions, when and where you were caught speeding, and you ring the DVLA, the licensing authority, they can't actually tell you any more than your licence can tell you. I did this recently on a renewal of my firearm certificate. I asked the DVLA, because I couldn't remember when and where I'd been caught speeding, I should give you an indication of how often it happens. And they told me not only does it come off the licence after 5 years, it comes off their internal records after 5 years. So I'm not entirely sure how the police would go about finding your driving offences, whether or not they bypass the DVLA altogether and go to the prosecution services. I do not know, but they do need to know all of your offences. If you've ever been found guilty of any violent crime, do not pass go, do not collect £200, you are not getting a firearm or a shotgun certificate. That's just the way it is. That's pretty much similar to felons in the US not being allowed to legally own a firearm. Goes with the territory, unfortunately. Part B is a medical declaration and consent. This is basically arse covering from the constabulary's perspective. It's yes, everything I've given you is true. Yes, I give you permission to contact my general practitioner. Yes, I understand that my GP may say things that I wouldn't want you to hear, but that that information has to be disseminated to the police, and I consent to this process. I consent to the police having more personal data about me than they would usually have. You've got to bear in mind when you apply for a shotgun or a firearm certificate, you then get a big file in your firearm certificate, shotgun certificate, and all of the other information that you've ever processed, and that stays with the firearms licensing unit, and they know absolutely everything from a perspective of your health records, what firearms you currently have, what firearms you're likely to want in the future, numbers of ammunition, all of the quantifiable information that they feel relevant to have about you is kept. Data protection does apply, but they will have a file in their offices with your name on it, and every time you do anything, that file will be added to. Moving down, at the bottom of every page, the applicant's name, signature and date must be filled in, and as I say, that's not on the bottom of individual pages, that's the bottom of every page. Page 1, page 2, page 3, and so on, all the way through the 11 pages of this document. So there are a lot of yes, I have read this page, yes, I confirm what I'm putting on here is correct. Moving down to the third page, this is with regards to firearms applications only, not shotgun applications. If you are applying for the grant of a firearm, this is irrelevant, stick none in the box, move on. If you are applying for a renewal of a firearm certificate, this is where you have to go and do inventory of what you currently have. On the box below, you have several fields to fill out. So you have caliber, type, make and model, serial number, and reason. Caliber is a bit of an oddball one because they don't necessarily mean the caliber you'll be shooting. For example, a 308 Winchester is a 30 cal rifle. If you were to put 30 cal there, they would not accept that. They would want to know 308 Winchester. The reason for that is primarily because 308 Winchester and 7.62B51 can be interchangeable, and they license 308 Winchester and 7.62B51 as separate firearms, separate calibers and separate ammunition. So for example, if you have 7.62B51 bolt action rifle, you will not be allowed in most cases to go and buy 308 Winchester ammunition for it, or vice versa. So you would have to put, in a test case for example, we would put a 308 Winchester, the type would be a bolt action rifle, the make and model would be a Remington 700, serial number would be whatever the serial number for that action and barrel combined is. And a reason, there are several good reasons for owning rifles. Target shooting is primarily what most people will be used to seeing. Deer stalking is another. Pest control is another. We have no right of self-defence with a gun in the UK, so self-defence is not a valid reason. It will never be a valid reason in the UK, by virtue of what's happened in the past and by virtue of public consensus. Other types of firearm we're allowed from a bolt action perspective, we are allowed also a straight pull rifle. So K31 Swiss, for example, would be classed as a straight pull. An AR-15 with no gas components, straight pull. Those are fine from a perspective of, yes, we are allowed those in any calibre. The only self-loading rifle we are allowed in the UK is 22 long rifle, semi-automatic action rifles. So your GSG5s, your MP5s in 22, your Smith & Wesson M&P15s, any AR lower can have a dedicated 22 caliber AR upper, and that AR upper will be fine in semi-automatic. That is the only semi we're allowed in the UK. That doesn't become Section 5, but Joe Soap, general public, are not going to be interested in Section 5 anyway. They wouldn't be allowed to do so. So if you're renewing and you have firearms, that's where you need to put it. If you are not renewing, but you want to grant, or if you're renewing and you want additional firearms, you would have to input them here. So for example, I've currently got 5 rifles, and I want a 6th, and I want a 7.5 Swiss. Then in the calibre, 7.5x55 type, straight pull rifle, reason target shooting. You don't technically have to tell them what make and model rifle you wanted. For example, if I wanted a 260 Remington for deer hunting, I would put the calibre as a 260 type, bolt action, reason stalking. And the reason I would put bolt action as the type and not have to include the make or model is I went to view several 260 rifles. I picked up a Remington and didn't like it. I picked up a Seiko, fell in love. There you go, you're not tied down to a single manufacturer or type of rifle in future tense. So that's the reason you are less restricted on what you want to choose in the future. As soon as you have it, have your future firearm in your possession, then you would write off to the police and say, this is the gun I have, can you amend my licence to show that I've acquired this gun. As usual, you have the applicant's name, signature and date at the bottom of page 3. Page 4 is details of ammunition to be possessed. As we said previously, we are not only licensed on our firearms, but we're licensed on the amount of ammunition. So you need to put the calibre and the quantity of ammunition to be possessed. This is ammunition you can keep, carry and shoot. Every time you go over the number by any significant amount, you will be in trouble. So for example, most people will tend to say 308 Winchester, I will have 250 rounds. 22 long, because everybody shoots through it like you wouldn't believe, let's have 1,000 rounds. This information is put on your firearm certificate, so when you go to a dealer and you buy ammunition, they cannot supply you more ammunition than you are allowed to possess. So it's a checks and balances approach. You are allowed X, you go to a dealer, he can only supply you with X, he cannot supply you with Y. Moving down, we have the security arrangements. Is my cabinet to a British standard or equivalent? Yes. Is it bolted to the fabric of the building? Yes. Is it out of sight of casual visitors? Yes. Those top 3 are hugely important. The police can come to your house and say, don't like the position of the cabinet, move it please. Your cabinet's far too out in the open. It's an obvious talking point when somebody comes to the house, or if somebody comes to clean your windows, they can see through and see the cabinet. If they know what a Bratton sound, or they know what any other particular safe is they know you've got guns in the house. It's not, if it's not out of sight, it's not out of mind is the idea. So people can see it, people know. It's very hush hush firearms in the UK. You were advised not to let people know you own firearms. The police, that is, they would prefer it if everybody had a gun and nobody knew. That's just the way the licensing works at the moment. Whether or not we have any individual freedoms and we'll gain back some of our rights and privileges, who knows. Well, as it stands, secrecy is the order of the day with regards to people who do not participate in the shooting sports. Are your guns stored at another address? Now that address may be if you have a second home. That address may also be if you aren't allowed to store firearms at home, but you're allowed to store firearms at your club, for example. So say if you're a 18-year-old who wants to take up shooting, who still lives at home with his parents and whose parents don't like the idea of him having a gun in the house, he can say to the police, okay, my gun club is allowing me to store my firearms there. Then you have to let the police know that your firearms are stored off-site. Do you share security with anybody, i.e. do you share your gun safe with anybody? This is particularly pertinent if you are in a household with more than one firearm certificate holder. Do they have access to the same cabinets? If so, do they have the same firearms on each certificate? That would give two persons the ability to shoot the same firearm. Ammunition storage. You have to give details. Not only do your firearms need to be stored as separate devices, your ammunition needs to be stored and locked away. The police will take into account that a gun is a firearm, a bolt is a firearm, a suppressor is a firearm, and ammunition is dangerous. All four things need to be locked away, and if possible, preferable to the police, they should be locked away separately. That way, should you have multiple safes, it would mean you needing to break into two or more safes to get access to the gun, the bolt, the suppressor, the ammunition, as opposed to breaking into one safe, free for all, move out. Give any details of other relevant security arrangements. This can be along the lines of I have CCTV, I have perimeter lighting, I have a monitored alarm system. Anything that boosts your security rating in the eyes of the police will be beneficial, gives them less to worry about. Again, applicant's name, applicant's signature. This is particularly pertinent to shotgun details. If you own any shotguns currently, fill them in, what calibre, what type, make, model and serial number. If you don't, as before, none in the box, move on. Again, the same questions regarding security. Is your cabinet up to standard? Is your cabinet bolted to the building? Is it out of sight? Is it stored at another address? Do you share security? Any other details of security? Name and signature. Even if we weren't to fill out that page, name and signature is at the bottom. We spoke earlier about coterminous firearms and shotgun certificate. This is where you would apply for a coterm. A coterminous can only work when your firearms certificate is expiring. So you didn't take a firearm and a shotgun certificate at the same time. Say, for example, you took a shotgun certificate out, and then 18 months later you took a firearm certificate out. Obviously, 18 months sooner your shotgun certificate would expire than your firearm certificate. You would not be allowed to coterm on that shotgun certificate. You can coterminous a shotgun certificate onto a firearm certificate, but not the other way around. So you'd have to do 18 months of your shotgun certificate's renewal. Then when your firearms certificate came for renewal, you would then renew your firearms and your shotgun together. Why they have to do it that way, I don't know, but speaking to Greater Manchester Police, that is the way they've advised me I have to do mine, so I'm advising you the same. As usual, date and sign at the bottom. Continuation sheet. Do you have any additional information you wish to pass to the police? This is an interesting one. Why anyone would volunteer more information than is already on the sheet, I do not know. Potentially, I can imagine if you had the authority to shoot over land, say you were pest control at a particular farm, you could put information in there to say, I work for XYZ farmer when he has particular issues with particular pests. These are his details. Should you need to get in touch with him to ensure I have permission to shoot over that land, or indeed that land is allowable to shoot over. Not all land will be granted the permission to shoot on. That can be put on part E, the continuation. As I say, if you have no grounds to shoot over, if you are not engaging in pest control, that sort of thing, then I can't see why you would want to add any more information to this form. Scrolling down again, name and signature. Declaration. Arse covering time. I've told the truth. I hereby apply for either a firearm or a shotgun certificate. The information I've provided is true, and I understand that it is offence if I have lied. Print, name, date, 4 photographs, and the referee's requirements. If you are under 18 years of age, then you can have a parent or guardian sign that you are allowed, in their view, a firearm or a shotgun certificate. Again, at the bottom of this page, oh no, there isn't. Moving on, here are your referee details. Very, very straightforward. Title, name, forename, date of birth, occupation, home address, postcode, telephone number, all the contact details of the person you want to be your referee. In what capacity do you know the applicant? More often than not, there's going to be a little mixture of business and pleasure. You're not going to want to approach somebody you don't know personally and ask them to sign your firearm or shotgun certificate. The likelihood is you're not going to want to approach only a friend for the same manner. One would be too biased potentially in one respect, the other in the other. So you're going to want somebody with good standing in the community, who's known you professionally and personally, if at all possible. You'll tend to find things like bank managers, doctors, that sort of. It's the same brigade who sign your passport effectively. Good standing in the community, law-abiding citizens. The police are very, very happy to take that. What they will not allow is company directors. It's a flat refusal. Just because you know a company director doesn't mean that that director is a particularly well-informed person about you. It doesn't mean that necessarily they have the best upstanding in society. They will check with your referees. It's something that they have to do. So take care in choosing your referee. Make sure you get somebody who knows you more than personally, preferably personally and professionally, but also somebody who's willing to say it as it is. The police are going to be very, very hot on speaking to your referee, so just make sure you get somebody who's reliable from the police's perspective, not necessarily from yours. Underneath, they give you information on what should be signed. basically is to say that the pictures and the details of you are recognisable by the referee, and that there is no reason why they should not have a shotgun or a firearm certificate from their perspective. They are not held accountable for anything that goes wrong. So, for example, in the case of a mass shooting, the police would not look at the referees and say, what's going on with, why did they say yes or no or whatever. It's irrelevant at that stage. Their signature becomes irrelevant. So there's nothing for your referee to fear. So if the question is asked, will I be in any sort of trouble if you go postal, the answer is an immediate no. Applicant name and signature at the bottom. This is referee 2. Firearm certificate requires 2 referees. A shotgun certificate requires only the 1. With a firearm certificate, you'll usually find that the club you shoot at, the secretary of that club will be one of your referees. The reason being is the secretary of your club will have a duty of care to the club and the community, so that they can, and because they see you shoot more often than anybody else, they'll know whether you're safe, of sound mind, good judgment. You aren't a loner, for example. That's something that the police will worry about. That's why the second referee tends to be somebody from the club in authority at that club. Print and sign. And then we have the equality nonsense. What this has to do with a firearm certificate, I couldn't tell you. Do you have a disability, yes or no, or prefer not to say? What is your ethnic group? Why on earth that matters, I couldn't tell you. This is crazy. This was the only thing I didn't fill in on my certificate because I didn't think it was relevant whatsoever. Once you hit the bottom of page 11, you are done. That is your application process complete. All that remains is you have the correct photographs, the correct licence fee by cheque or by postal order or by however you wish to pay, and you send it off to your local constabulary. I would always recommend any paperwork that goes off to your local constabulary be photocopied before it's sent, because you cannot trust the postal service, not the people, the service in general. People lose things get destroyed, whatever. If you've got a copy of it, you don't have to worry about it. You've got to bear in mind that the police are not necessarily likely to believe you every time you say something. If you can back up the fact that you've sent a renewal in good time, then they have no reason to cancel your certificate, for example. So always make a copy before you send it, and always send any documentation that's going to the police recorded delivery. Have proof, have a signature that it's got to the end it needs to go to, because if you're in a position where you've acquired a new firearm, you've sent details to the police that you have acquired the firearm, it's been lost, and then all of a sudden, hello, where's this firearm come from on your certificate? You have the photocopied documents that you've sent, plus you have a record that you went to the post office, you paid for the service to be sent, plus if it's actually got somewhere, there will be a signature attached to it, and you can say, well, it was actually signed for by this person at this date, on this time, can you chase that up from your end? It's entirely about covering the applicant's arse. So being as thoughtful as you can and as mindful as you can that things in this world can and do go wrong, and if you can go to the police with all of the relevant information post it going wrong, they are going to be much happier, much more polite and pleasant to deal with. You have to understand that not necessarily do these people, these firearms officers, have good reason to think you should own a firearm. That's the bottom line. It's a privilege, it's not a right, so they're always going to be questioning that privilege. If you can show that you've made every human attempt to ensure that the information you've got there is, one, correct, two, on time, and three, in a format that they require it in, then they have no reason whatsoever to suspend or, in some cases, deny your application. I hope you found this video useful. Please let me know if you have or if you haven't. These forms, the 2XX forms, which will be 201, 201A, there is also a variation form that I'll go through at another date. These will be up on my website soon, so if you can please check back, that'd be great. Please comment, let me know what you think. Thanks very much for your time.